In the heart of the state-of-the-art, at the dawn of the next stage in entertainment, you found no proscenium.
You have indeed found no proscenium, the voice of everything immersive, and this is our 2021 Critics Pick show. 3 segments today. Segment 1 will find Kathryn, Blake, and Edward talking about their picks for best moment and talking at length about one of their picks for best show or experience of the year. Everyone got up to 3 slots this time out. Segment 2, same action, just a different crew. You're going to find Kevin, Laura, Leah, and Patrick. And then at the very end, you get me. Before we dive into all that, just want to give a big thank you to our sustaining backers, the folks who keep us going all year round. All of our Patreon backers help out, and we need more of you, of course. Patreon.com/NoProscenium. But there's a group of you who are just, in it every month in a big way. And they are Ari Hurston, Brittany, Deborah Robinson, Elaine, Jay Bushman, Jerome Joseph Gentis, David Bassick, Lonnie Hanson, Mark Baltazar, Samuel Mustry, Sidney Guillory, and Jan Budman. Thank you all. 2021 has not been the easiest of years in any way, shape, or form. And that you've been here to support us in what we do means more than you maybe realize. All right, let's get into it. Well, here we are again, or maybe for the first time. We haven't recorded the opening yet. This segment of our Critics Picks 2021 show. Look, I just named the show. Is brought to you by. We're going to start with Kathryn.
Hello.
And
this is Kathryn Yu.
Yes, and then Ed.
Hi, this is Ed Mylechreest.
And that leaves.
Hi there, everyone. This is Blake Weil.
You'd think I'd have a better method of doing this after all this time, but nope. I in fact do not have a better method of doing this after all this time. So, here's how this is going to go, which I may have told everyone already, but just in case I haven't, it's the
final countdown.
Just a quick reminder: we're going to do 2 rounds in here. The first is going to be about Blake, Ed, and Kathryn's, in that orders, their favorite immersive moments of 2021, singular moment, just plural because it's 3 of them. And then we're going to go Kathryn, Ed, and Blake talking about one of their critics' picks. We will disclose all 3, but they will wax poetic about one of them. Before the show, we drew virtual straws, i.e. I just told everyone what was going to happen. Blake, you drew the first position for moments. What was your pick for immersive moment here in 2021?
So, I'm actually going to go a little off script here because as we were waiting to start, I remembered a moment that I was debating between 2, and one of them, as we were starting up, just took precedence, and that is the grand finale of the spectacular Dragon Butter by Brian Sanders Junk Productions. I love a Brian Sanders show. It's always something wacky and intense, and a little bit sexy and a little bit strange, and Dragon Butter was no exception. I really dug it. Story of a mad scientist and the odd creations that he made that combined video game mechanics with incredibly hyper-talented modern dance. And so, how are we going to have a finale to this show with anything but a boss battle? And this is something I am willing to spoil because the venue is going to be torn down to replace to be replaced with condos. So
No,
I don't believe we're going to get...
no.
Well, I will say this in the show's favor. I mean, that did get worked into the plot. It was in part a commentary on the neighborhood's gentrification, but that's neither here nor there. What the point is the moment, and that is this final boss battle. The music pumps up, we all get shuttled back to the start of the experience, and armed with Nerf guns, huge arsenals of beanbags, or in my case, a 20-shot paintball gun, and then ushered into a grand final room, at which point a dancer on an enormous harness, swinging from the ceiling, growling in wings as the titular Dragon Butter, a dragon butterfly hybrid monster, is attacking our intrepid crew of scientists attempting to escape the facility, and we're all invited to just take shots at them in the middle of this dance. This was really impactful to me, not just because it was one of these only in immersive moments where it felt like the boundaries and rules of theater kind of collapsed on themselves and you got to view something from an incredibly unexpected angle, but also this was my first live show as the pandemic had, if not waned, gotten a little bit more manageable. And so this incredibly sort of bombastic return to form really stood out to me. It was really something special that really just kind of reminded me of what I had been missing during the exclusively virtual period, and also reminded me that even with social distancing, even with sort of the, at least, temporary death of, the intimate one-on-one where you're going to get locked in a closet face-to-face with an actor, there are still so many interesting things that the forum can do to promote engagement. And that was all there in this peculiar little microcosm as I took pot shots at a dancer while they were clawing at another one.
That whole thing you said about, being special because it was like the first thing coming back. Like I definitely know what you mean. I even think like I'm going to find myself being very fond of the shows that I saw that recaptured that magic, probably this year for ages to come. Like I'll always remember, certain things. I'll talk about those when I do my segment of the show, but I feel like that's such an important point. And on the one hand, it feels a little obvious to those of us on the inside. I think, well, of course, but I think there's something important about, just that discovery that, oh, we can do this again. And even that maybe we can do it, it may be different, but it still has that special something.
For sure. And I definitely see myself going back to that moment in a show that, for however much I loved it, I'll admit, it's a fluffy, kind of frivolous show. Brian Sanders' junk tends to make confections more than they make, maybe meatier entrees. But this moment is always going to be a gem for me because of that, and the context in which it landed in my life.
Yeah. Well, that's a great note to kick us off on. So thank you for that, Blake. And just a reminder of what town Brian Sanders' company is operating out of.
For sure, Brian Sanders' Junk is operating out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. So if you are in the lovely Philadelphia area, come on down and see something a little bit weird, a little bit sexy, and a whole lot fun.
All right. Moving up the East Coast to where Ed hangs his hat. Ed, what do you have for us?
Well, I'm based in New York City, and this year going on from what we've just been talking about, seeing shows come back, one company in particular wanted to honor what has happened over the past year, and that was the company Deaf of Classical. And that's a company here in New York which tries to do classical music, but portrayed in new areas, in unusual spaces, typically found in cemeteries around the city. It's quite unusual. Now, in my day job, I'm a music teacher, so I do have already a bit of an inclination to the group. But this year, they produced a piece called Hymn to the City, which was dedicated to the memory of all those who we lost over the past year, but also as a message of hope for those of us who are continuing. There were sections which were to do with the first responders, sections to do with the people who have come to New York, the people who have gone before us. Quite a moving piece. So quite different to Blake's, but in a similar vein, taking what's happened over the past 18 months, 2 years, whatever we're up to now, and using that and reflecting on that was really quite special. But for me, there was one real highlight, one moment which I picked, which was standing on top of a hill in Greenwood Cemetery. So it's a national landmark in Brooklyn. It's a huge, huge space. And many famous people are buried there. People have been through these gates. But we're stood by the graveside of Leonard Bernstein, the fantastic composer, famous conductor of the New York Philharmonic, the musical director for many years. We're standing by his graveside, and there's a quintet of brass players from the New York Philharmonic, some of the best brass players in the world. And they are there performing excerpts and pieces from West Side Story. Now, for a musical theatre kid, this is already amazing. But the fact that this is taking place next to Bernstein, all the while we're looking out over this incredible sunset, which is just going down over the skyline of Manhattan. Literally, you look around you and Manhattan is there. You can see all the skyscrapers in the distance. You can see the Statue of Liberty. And it was just one of those moments that just genuinely took my breath away. It was stunning. It was like a picture. It's one of those moments which just like imprinted on my heart. As a classical theatre geek, it was beautiful. But as an immersive fan, it was wonderful to be able to share this moment with other people in a situation which we haven't been able to do for so long. But listening to the music and this celebration of somewhere and there's a place for us, and knowing that like right here, right now, New York City, coming back, there is a place for us, and there's a decision there. And of course, this moment has become even more poignant since the passing of Stephen Sondheim just last month. So it was a really special moment, and just one which just took my breath away. So that's why I picked it.
That was Greenwood Cemetery, right, Ed?
Yes, Greenwood Cemetery.
Oh, fantastic location. Wow. One of the places I definitely miss.
And they always have the coolest programming. No, I really get where you're coming from there. I just did, one of my first visits to the city in a while this past weekend, and having sort of that flood of memories come back of sort of the way things perhaps felt before all this got started, that it sounds so moving to have that sort of reminder and monument that, no, that spirit's going to come back, and there is that sort of eternal, ineffable spirit to the city. And we've been through bad times, and we're going to get through this time.
Absolutely. Once a New Yorker, always a New Yorker, Kathryn.
Thanks.
Honestly, it was great to share in this moment and engaging with people who weren't engaged with classical music before. We're taking part and watching amazing violinists and amazing musicians from the whole thing was done by the New York Philharmonic. So there was absolutely like a sense of pride and like, this is home court. Even for me, I have an accent. I'm not from New York, but New York is home now. And it was beautiful just to share in that moment with all these other people. So yeah, it was very special.
All right, Kathryn, it's your turn.
Oh gosh, yeah. Well, definitely going to take a turn. Perhaps mine's a little bit more frivolous than Ed's was, but finally made it back to Galaxy's Edge earlier this year, having not been in the parks for a good 16 months or so.
I also want to point out to everybody, I'm not the one who brought it up.
And I finally got on Rise of the Resistance. I had tried a couple times in February of 2020, and then finally hit the jackpot in June. And the moment that really resonated with me, the thing that like really struck me, maybe only lasted 30 seconds, 60 seconds tops, but there's this location during the experience that I think everyone has seen on social media, where there's all these stormtroopers and you're getting like captured by the First Order and it's all part of the story. And I was really paying attention to these two little boys next to me. And when one of the cast members kind of gently scolded them for like not paying attention, not standing where they're supposed to be, and their eyes got as wide as saucers, and they realized that they were the center of attention, and someone from the First Order was yelling at them, and like this was happening to them specifically, they were being singled out. Like, it's a very cute moment, and all the adults around are kind of snickering, and then they start to get in trouble. And oh no, I'm gonna stand where they tell me. I'm not. Everyone look straight ahead. Don't look to the side. Don't look at the people you're with. And I just like later thinking about this, I'm like, do you know what they're gonna talk about in the back seat of the minivan on the way home? 6 months from now, they're gonna be like, remember that time we got yelled at during Rise of the Resistance when we went to Disneyland? And I've taken classes with retired Imagineers, and they talk about how, for a lot of people, a Disney theme park trip happens twice in their lifetime. Once when they're a child, and the second time when they get to bring their children to try to share in like that kind of magical immersive moment. And I would really like to, talk to them or something in like a couple of years, because I feel as if having that tiny bit of attention and having that person be in character and interact with you, that's going to stay with them for a really long time. And so it's so brief, like it's a really fleeting moment, but I don't know, it stood out as so special to me.
And like, what a testament to the cast and crew of all productions, not just the amazing Disney cast and crew members, cast members, whatever they're called in the Disney world, but those small touches, like that's the stuff which, and we've all seen it. We've all done immersive shows, and we've all maybe got a little jaded over the years, having done so many, perhaps. But those moments of like genuine interaction, it's beautiful to see, and like it's out of the mouth of babes, right? It's just amazing to see that happen for children, but it happens to the best of us. So we've all been in those shows where someone actually takes that moment to like glance or to say something, and you feel engaged. And what a beautiful testament to what immersive theater can do.
I mean, it's funny because like it doesn't take much, right? These are the grace notes, but my goodness, they're powerful.
I still tell all my immersive theater friends about the weird shrug Mallory Grayson gave me at Sleep No More once. It's the absolute tiniest things that stick with you the most. And it's so cool seeing that happen to someone else in real time.
Yeah. Well, as we decided, Kathryn, you're going to go ahead and hold the mic at the moment and break out your 3 picks and wax poetic on one of them.
Oh gosh. All right. So I guess I have to go first. So my top 3 most memorable shows and experiences of the year were The Invisible, a VR experience by Darkfield, Le Bal de Paris, also a VR experience by Blanca Lee, which I'll dig into in a second, and The Program, which was a telephonic experience by the San Francisco Neo-Futurists. So those were the 3 that really stood out to me this year.
So tell us about, because I remember you describing the I've already forgotten how to say because it's like it's French, right? The Blanca Lee, what?
Yes, the Bal de Paris.
Bal de Paris. Le Bal de Paris.
Yes, which was a location-based, multi-person, multi-dancer experience that their team created a solo player digital remote version of. And actually, I just checked their website. They've brought back the location-based one. So if you're in France, you can actually go see this. But I hate to be like Stefan, but it literally has everything. The ball gowns are by Chanel. Everyone is wearing a kind of gold metallic animal mask in virtual reality. There is dancing and there is music and there are gardens and nightclubs and also a synchronized swimming kind of musical number. It's very Ethel Merman at sometimes. You get on a boat at one point for that. You get on a train at some other time. There's dancing in a garden. It's very Alice in Wonderland. It is actually like this whole 40-minute story. You are a guest who's been invited into this celebration, this gala, and the parents of this young woman are holding it because she's come back from her travels from far away. But, there's always a wrinkle here. The man that she left behind is kind of sore, and it's like, why did you leave me? You went and you traveled the world. Well, now I'm back, and it's this whole like, will they, won't they, will they get back together? Maybe she'll find another suitor. How have her travels changed her? And it's all done in these lavish sets. You really feel like you're inside a Baz Luhrmann musical, and I was just enchanted by the level of attention to detail in terms of the ball gowns and the fact that you saw these like non-player characters all around you. At one point, I thought to myself, well, there must be like 100 people dancing above me, below me. They really used that kind of like sense of verticality in virtual reality to good effect. And the world is fanciful and surreal, and it really leans on that sense of like, I'm in a dark ride. I feel overwhelmed in the way that I feel, for example, when I go to Sleep No More, and I just found myself swept away in this world as we went through the story, and then ended up at, like Moulin Rouge for the last 10 minutes.
Nice. Very nice. Go for it.
Oh, I was just going to confess that there is a slim chance that when I'm headed to Europe in June, that I might spend a couple days in Paris, and I just wanted to say, you've sold me! Congratulations! I'm Googling tickets immediately after
Right.
this.
Well, if you don't know how to do ballroom dancing in real life, I think they actually try to teach you. So, because the dancers are in the same physical space as everyone who's in a headset in the location-based version. And if you do go, we definitely need a report back.
I will do my absolute darndest.
Kathryn,
bring your best Chanel.
Kathryn, could you expand on that a little? I mean, as someone who's not as plugged into the VR world as you are, other than the audio and visual, what sort of interaction do you have with the piece?
It's definitely a lot more like Sleep No More in that there's action happening around you and you're more of an observer. But if I recall correctly, they do greet you as a guest at the beginning, and they're so glad that you're here, and you get to kind of pick out like your avatar from this gallery of different gowns and suits. So it's a little lower on the interactivity side, but in terms of just the sets and the environment, they crank that up to 11.
I love the idea of like recreating a sort of massively, so like the, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the IRL one is meant for like multiple people to like be in at the same time, right? Or is it still a solo piece?
There's multiple players and multiple dancers all together.
Yes. So I love that the VR version, like they add like extra character, like NPCs as it were, to like create that effect, right? Like there's something, and I just love this whole idea of there being like a digital reflection of a physical show, or in some ways like vice versa, right? Like since the beginning of all of this, and by that I mean since like before Facebook bought Oculus, or even the weekend they were buying it actually, I've been obsessed with the idea that if we're going to have VR, that this stuff is both, there's theater pieces, there are these grand adventures, and then there's digital versions of them, so that people who can't go to the McKittrick or who can't go to Paris can put the headset on and at least get a version of it. And also it becomes something that can be extended anywhere. And probably much like, listening to an album over and over again doesn't make you not want to go to the concert. Quite the opposite. I think that's lovely that there's independent artists who are basically doing exactly that.
Can I just jump on that further? Because we've seen over the last year, so many companies have moved to this online space, and all that's done is increase accessibility of every sense. It means that people who are international can go and enjoy this. It means that people who have disabilities are able to enjoy shows they aren't before. I mean, it's not perfect, and it's definitely something which creators have to be aware of. It's not, you can't just slap a online version of a show together and expect it to work. But those companies that make it actually put the effort and the time in, it's so important. And like you say, it offers so much great opportunity for accessibility to these pieces. Yeah, it's absolutely very exciting to see what's happened the past 2 years, and to see that as we're moving forward. Like, we don't need to forget these lessons, these amazing things that we've done, just because we're able to get back in person.
Well, while you have the mic, unless Kathryn wanted to jump in real quick.
No, let's make Ed talk to us about his picks.
So Ed, what are
hot
the
seat?
Yeah, what are the three hitting in the guide, and then we'll select one out for you to talk about.
Well, having just said about online experiences, all three of these were in-person experiences, and all three of these took place here in New York. The first one was the show The Grown-Ups by Night Drive. The short summary is that it's a post-apocalyptic world happening in real time around a campfire, and you're one of a select group around the campfire at a kids' camp somewhere, and the world is gradually falling apart, and the poor camp counselors are trying to keep the world, at least the camp world, slightly sane. So that was an amazing piece taking place in Brooklyn. Very funny, very witty, great piece by them. The next pick of mine was the show Endure, which is a run woman show. That is correct, a run woman show, which was all about following a runner on a journey of training for a marathon taking place in Central Park. You followed this anonymous runner, and as you did so, you had headphones and you were listening to her journey as you ran around the park. It was such a beautiful tale. It had lots of elements to it, and it went quite deep and dark at times. Why is she running? What is she running away from? What is she running to? All those sort of questions, but really a one-woman show, a show that's been in development for 10 years with different iterations all around the world, and this one, which took place in Central Park, really knocked it out of the park for me. Truly an excellent piece. So that was my second pick, but my other pick, which I'm going to talk about to you now, is the show Bottom of the Ocean. Now, this is a show which has opened officially just fairly recently, just the last month or two. Another show which has been in development for a long time. But this show is from the brain of Andrew Hufter, who is an amazing immersive creator here in New York City. He was the creator behind the show House World a few years ago, and is one half of the team behind Whisper Lodge, which many people will know and have heard of, bringing ASMR to a whole audience over the past few years. But Bottom of the Ocean is a show taking place in a brand new space, which Andrew has created and curated himself, taking place underneath a church. He's cleared out this basement and turned it into a gymnopédie, which is an amazing space, which is he has made and tailored for his own immersive creations. And this show, Bottom of the Ocean, is really a labor of love, but is a magnificent transformative piece. One of those ones which you came away from feeling like you'd walked out of a dream. How much of that had been real? Can I believe what I just experienced? The overall summary is that it is a quiet piece about self-reflection whilst exploring the bottom of the ocean. You're greeted by different characters, all in incredible costumes, who ask questions of you and to you about death, about afterlife, about meaning, about what the world is. It's a gentle piece, and there's ASMR elements, there's self-reflective elements, there's so much beautiful music and singing. There's a sound bath at the end, which is just beautiful, amazing sounds taking place all around you. All the while, you're dressed up as one of these creatures, invited to explore the bottom of the ocean. And like I say, truly a transformative piece. It's very hard to describe without it sounding completely crazy.
Had you done Whisper Lodge, which he co-created with Melinda Lau, or Houseworld, which was his show before this?
No, I hadn't.
Neither
I hadn't.
Oh, wow.
I really wish that I had. I've heard great things about the two. I was once able to send my wife to Whisper Lodge, and she loved it. But this was actually the first time I've had a chance to experience the work. And like I say, really, truly, truly stunning.
Andrew's,
Please.
Andrew's one of those creators who's like really helped define aspects of the movement, right? Zay saw Houseworld ages ago and like fell in love with it. And I think like the second time I came to New York, and when I went back to Then She Fell, and like, did I do this? Yeah. Wow. I'm just remembering that I did a trip where I went to Then She Fell, and I went to Grand Paradise twice, and I went to Sleep No More. I'm just remembering I did all of that. I was like, I did go back on that. And that second time, and Andrew was along, Andrew and his partner were along on that run with me. And he's a great guy. And I had worried that after Houseworld, he was never going to find a space ever again. So the fact that, how did you pronounce it? Because I've been saying it wrong this entire time. How do you pronounce gymno?
Oh, well, I say gymnopedy, but
gymnopedy.
That's what I'm putting my money on.
Okay, cool.
Andrew, correct us later.
I keep on going gymnopede, like I'm some kind of coach. Hey, coach. Hey, coach, go down to the gymnopede and get me something.
It really is an amazing space. And the story, if anyone has a chance to chat to Andrew, he can tell it much better. But it really is a case of he was working in the church as an organist. That was what he was doing as a day job. He decided to explore the basement just to see what was down there. And it was a mess. It was full of all sorts of rats and asbestos and all that terrible stuff. And he took the time and effort over several years now to clean it up, to empty it out, with lots of help from some amazing friends. I know. I'm sure
the cast ended up cleaning all the refuse out with him. I remember.
Oh, absolutely. And now this space is incredible, and it's all his. He's able to use it from a business side of things. Andrew has done an amazing job because he's able to use the space and rent it out to documentaries and films and photo shoots, because it's such an unusual and beautiful space. I would highly recommend it.
Music videos have used that wall of televisions now.
It's just stunning. If you haven't seen pictures of the space, I know gymnopedy or whatever Noah wants to call it.
It's on Instagram.
It's on Instagram. It's on Facebook. Just an incredible space. But even seeing those photos just doesn't give you quite the impression of being in the space. And when the space is being used specifically for what it was designed for, it's just incredible. It honestly just feels unlike anything else.
That makes a lot of sense, because I saw a test version of of this show, Bottom of the Ocean, in Andrew's apartment in spring 2019. So he literally has designed the space to fit what his vision is. That's what I'm assuming.
Absolutely. And I know that he's still tweaking, he's still working on it. Again, this is someone, one of those creators who is taking time to make the work and make the work exactly what he wants it to be. As far as working with, he has an amazing cast of people, he has an amazing group around him helping him, but honestly, it's just a fantastic piece. Anybody who's in New York, you try to get tickets if you're visiting. It's booking right now all the way through to March of 2022, I believe. Already making
it's next to impossible to get a ticket right now. I've been fighting for weeks. So, perhaps our audience has luckier fingers than I do.
I hope so, but I'm so pleased. I'm so pleased for the team, because so often here in New York, particularly, immersive shows are like a flash in a pan thing. People put hours and years into making a piece, and it runs for a week or 2 weeks. Just because of the way the system works here in New York, it's so easy for shows to open and close before you even know about it. So the fact that here he has a show which has legs and is working is just beautiful. So if you can,
Has Legs is working, is from a creator with a track record at a time when other shows that had legs and were working, unfortunately, aren't around anymore. So just it is, and even though like, yeah, intimate and small scale, you know, this is that model of immersive experience, immersive theater that is a little bit more like fine dining, right? Like I think of like the French Laundry which I've never been to, and maybe I don't even necessarily want to go to, although I do want to take Thomas Keller's masterclass on masterclass. But like,
it's necessary to have that tier because all of the learnings and insights and craft can trickle down.
There's that, and like the process on that was always, and I remember the first time hearing about it and being like, you do what? Just simply being told, yes, you call 3 months to the day and you must call them. And this is maybe like circa like 1999. So I was like, you mean I can't, like, they don't take an email? Okay, well, I guess they're not hip, but like, yeah, you would have to call exactly 3 months to the day. And if you didn't call that day and get through, you were not getting that.
You weren't getting that reservation. Yeah.
And that was the mode and the way. And so there's something to Kathryn's point, there's something to that tier. I'll tell you, I remember one of the best desserts I ever had was from someone who had been the pastry chef and the dessert chef at the French Laundry and was at a different restaurant. And I was at that restaurant. It was just amazing. It was just one of the most amazing things I've ever eaten. And, you know, they had gone through that program. So, and hopefully more artists will be going through Andrew's program. Blake, now that I've gone food references, bring it to you. Take us home, and maybe I know what's coming. So
back on track. What?
Let's
see. No, now I'm just crushed that in this year of mostly distant shows, I didn't get a lot to eat at the shows I've been to. You know, I love a good edible component to an immersive show. But no, here are 3 shows that I did love that I will dive in on. So the first show on my list of top choices was Escape from the Science Lab of Shifting Rules by Scrap, which was probably one of the most innovative escape rooms, up there with Pursuit of the Assassin Artist, that I have ever done. One of these things that takes a remote escape and does things that could only be done remotely. It is a really clever magic trick of a show that I highly recommend to anyone interested in the form. Artifacts of No Consequence is my next show, which was a Philadelphia-based meditation, I guess I would say, on how the pandemic has affected us all and what aftershocks we're feeling and what memories we come back to during this time of crisis that I have gone on about at length, and so I will spare you all my gushing praise for it again this evening. And then finally, a show that I have also effusively talked about, but has just stuck with me all year, of some of the most fun I have had online, and that is Obaken's If Musibia, Escaping from a... What's the exact subtitle? Escaping from a Killer in the Dark? And that is exactly what it says on the tin, and what I'm going to talk about in detail. So, Obaken does what they call haunted houses, live in Japan. But of course, you know, when everything's going remote and online for the pandemic, they gamely transitioned online. And If Musibia, Hiding in the Dark, Escaping from the Killer. Great
I love the title.
It's such a great title. It gives me such, like, 70s J-horror energy. It's spectacular. The whole show starts as a house tour over Zoom that is being delivered as one of these remote cultural experiences that had a moment during the pandemic. And then, bit by bit, the 2 girls giving you the house tour realize, oh no, there is a serial killer squatting in this house, and he's locked the doors behind us. And so you have to guide one of them as they try to free their friend and escape the killer's lair. And so what you entered thinking of as a haunted house actually feels something closer to an escape room. But the escape isn't the point. The game is next to impossible, but that spark of hope by the fact that you could win, you could get them to escape, it really elevates it into this sort of baddie horror fantasy. It is, for everyone who wants to live out their Texas Chainsaw Massacre memories, this is the show for you. And what really elevates it from just kind of, wow, it was this fun Batty J horror show, is the direction, the cinematography, and the pacing. I actually did it twice with two very different groups.
Okay, rub our nose in the fact that we no.
And both groups approached it with a totally different attitude, totally different pacing, and they accommodated it perfectly so that win or lose, it came down to the wire. The cinematography, spot on. I actually, having won once and lost once, have to say I prefer the lose condition. It ends with such a spectacularly shot, bizarre scene that seamlessly transitions from live video to pre-recorded video.
Yeah, it was freaky.
I haven't seen a remote horror show that made me actually scared and tense to nearly the same degree that full name always if Musibia hiding in the dark escaping from the killer brought to me. I just dug the hell out of this show. It was so much fun. And every year I like to give at least one. I think for the past 2 years I've called it the Wii Award. And this is this year's Wii Award winner. It's just so much fun.
The when you mentioned it in the group Slack, like today, you were like, this felt like it was like a century ago, right? Like it's been such a long year. And I was like, oh, right. If Musibia was totally this year. And just as everything you said is spot on, right? Like it feels like an interactive J-horror movie more than it's more of an interactive movie, I think, than almost anything I've ever seen in this space. And just that ending was amazing, and just every little bit and beat is just exquisite, absolutely exquisite.
I haven't even gushed about the set design yet. They managed to... It's literally just a suburban house in Tokyo. I recognize the neighborhood from when I studied abroad there. There were randos wandering into the early scene establishing shots at the start of the experience. They turned this into the creepiest, like, slaughterhouse, abandoned, spooky murder lair. Perfect layers of grime. They have an old CRTV that they have a snuff film that they recorded, a fake snuff film, I should clarify.
Yes.
That you
slightly important. Slightly important.
That you are then watching through the live camera on this grainy TV. And so the quality is so perfectly choreographed to be lousy that you have to squint and try to make out, as you're still getting this perfect sound quality of the screams of the victims and the scraping of the knives against the floor. Oh, just perfect!
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Well, that is a lovely spot for us to leave this segment of our Critics Picks 2021 show on. I want to thank all of you for just being with us this year. Blake, Ed, Kathryn, thanks for making everything we do possible, and thanks for putting a spotlight on all this incredible work.
Well, thank you so much for having us tonight. It's honestly been one of my big pleasures all year just to get to share all these cool things with you and with all the No Pro listeners and readers out there. And here is to even more cool stuff in 2022.
Yeah, thank you so
Right
much,
on.
Noah. Thank you, Kathryn.
All
And thank you to
right.
all of the creators as well. I mean, that's the thing that we're so fortunate we get to see the stuff, we get to review it, we get to say and share some of our thoughts and opinions on it. But there's so many people who created so much work this year, even in this crazy heck of a year, to see so much excellent work out there. I'm sure we'll all agree these are just some of the picks out of the many that we could have done. So many excellent shows this year. So congratulations to all of the creators, anybody who created a show this year. Good luck with the next year. We can't wait to see what else you have in store.
All right, and we're back for the second half of this year's No Pro Critics Picks. This time out, and they know what order they're starting in. So here's a little test. I'm going to let everyone introduce themselves in the order that they're going to appear, starting with
LA Reviews editor Kevin Gossett,
and then
the LA Arts editor Laura Hess,
Patrick McLean, the Chicago curator.
And I'm Leah Davis, the New England correspondent.
they're all made up titles, so it doesn't matter.
Well, thanks, Noah. That's something that.
Hey, I made up a nice title for you. So, okay. So, like we did in the first segment, we're gonna run through everybody's moments, and then we're gonna whip around and reveal people's shows, and everyone's gonna talk about one of those shows. So, we during the intense negotiations beforehand, Kevin, you got the ball to start us off, and thus, of course, also finish the game.
And funny you should mention Ball, because my moment comes from Blaseball, a show that I will incessantly talk about on any podcast that I end up on. So the moment came near the end of season 24, which was the end of kind of Blaseball's beta era, or the expansion era, and their beta test, essentially. So they normally it was an absurd cosmic horror Blaseball simulator. By the end, it turned into a rotating map where various teams guided their spaceships across the immaterial plane to escape from an exploding sun that then collapsed into a black hole. And it was this sequence where it was like everyone came together they acquired these objects and things that helped them bet and earn money over the course of the expansion era, and they now had to throw those things into their spaceships to fuel them away from the black hole. And it was this moment where all these teams came together, and you could help and donate to other teams to make sure they had fuel to escape. It was kind of this wonderfully weird thing as everyone flew away and tried to get away. And it was like, it really brought everyone together in just like a very cool moment. And it's one it stuck with me all year as a way that kind of like you can bridge this thing between immersives and ARGs and video games into something like this that turns into a wider experience for a group as a whole. And I think that's it felt immersive. It felt like part of something to try and make all of this happen. And it was great. It was cool. That's my moment of the year.
So it took this thing that had been this competitive play and turned it into a big cooperative moment.
Yeah, essentially. And I think that's what made it work so well, is it turned everything on its head, and it played really well with kind of the themes that Blaseball had been dealing with until that point, and then like really just like executed on like those themes and like finishing out the season that way.
Awesome. Laura, what was your moment in 2021?
Sure. My moment was from an installation art show at the USC Pacific Asia Museum in Pasadena, California. And the show is entitled Divine Immersion, The Experiential Art of Nick Dong. And Nick Dong is a Taiwanese-American artist who's based in Oakland, California. And while the entire show was extraordinary, there was a pivotal moment around a sculpture called Heaven. And this was a completely enclosed space. There's definitely overlap with Yayoi Kusama's mirrored infinity rooms. But there were some significant differences. And one of the things that Nick Dong did with this particular show was that he very explicitly talked about the different sculptures as quests of self-evolution, and invited guests to bring all of their chaos to the exhibition, chaos that had resulted from everything we'd been experiencing with the pandemic and its effects. And so there were, because of this particular show and the museum that it was at, even though in some ways I wish there'd been a queue of people lined up waiting to go into this particular installation, I was so grateful that that wasn't the case, because what I wound up having was this out of the home, very private, and yet otherworldly moment. So there were no restrictions. I could go inside. And so this is a completely enclosed room that's mirrored. And there was a center stool, and it also had some moving mechanisms. And there was a sound design component as well. So it's fully immersive and very transportive. And you could truly bring whatever you needed or wanted to bring to the moment. You could allow that to come up, to bubble out. And it felt like a complete sense of freedom. And what I cited in my capsule review of the show was that it just felt like a perfectly timed, profound offering of compassion on Nick Dong's part. There was just nothing else like it. And I went back multiple times because of that.
Patrick?
Yeah, my moment comes from Trader. It is a mystery box from the Deadbolt Mystery Society, and I'm going to cheat a little in the sense that the box itself was a really great offering. I found it to have a very engrossing and clever puzzles to it, and I found additionally, as Kevin and I had previously reviewed their copy of Conspiracy, I also found the story in Trader to be very robust and engaging. But what made this the moment for me this year was that I actually took this box home back with me on Thanksgiving because it was so small. It's a very compact, tight little box. It's mostly papers with, in this one, it was just one kind of knick-knack item. And I did that because typically on Thanksgiving Day, as the big meat items are cooking in the oven, there's a lot of downtime. There's a lot of need to pass the day away. And I thought this could be a really fun thing to do with my family. And they're also, for lack of a better word, normal people in the sense that, you know, they like to go to movies, they go to theater and things like that. They'll try anything, but they're definitely have never done anything immersive related. And this was kind of going to be a big introduction for a new way of doing things and a new way of storytelling, because they haven't even done escape rooms. And my father is a surgeon, my brother is a lawyer, and my sister-in-law is an accountant. And with all that set up, we start doing Trader, and we're going through, and because of a food related illness that it's a funny story we can get into on a review crew, maybe, I had to excuse myself. We basically got through one of the early puzzles, but I'm like, I gotta go lay down. And I came back much later to find out that not only did they finish it without taking a hint, they loved it. This was an amazing time, and they were so glad that I brought it back with them. And it really made me think about, and something that we kind of talk about consistently, and maybe even later in this conversation, is about accessibility. And I found that for these, quote, normal people, unquote, that have no interaction with immersive experiences at large, were able to just simply engage and finish it and have a good time with little to no instruction. Because I feel like a lot of times we're always talking about, like, we need to be emissaries, or there always needs to be like someone who makes an introduction to the world of immersive and all things related. But as I said, I think this is just a really great moment of showcasing that I think we're closer than ever. And I think accessibility and engagement with the general public is possibly right around the corner.
Well, that's a happy note to end your segment on. Leah, you've got the middle ground, so let's start with your moment.
I loved listening to everyone else's moments because I feel like these are trends that resonated for me as well. My moment is from The Fleecing, which is an online version of Almanac Dance Circus Theater's yearly, I want to say holiday-ish show. They do it around the new year. So I'm surprised that my moment is coming from a show that really kicked off 2021 for me. And what struck me about this show was that it was a remote show over Zoom. And really, I just think it's the peak of that form of theater. They managed to create this rich, multi-layered, weird universe that really drew you in and stood up to exploration. So everywhere you peeled back the surface, you weren't looking at a veneer of a story. You were digging into websites, you were finding cocktail recipes, and all these really mundane little things that came together to build itself into this really beautiful, how do I put it? It's a show that's really about the universal experience of the individual. So all this absurd stuff is happening. These characters are all very silly. There's a lot of clowning going on. At one point, one of the amazingly talented dancers did an interpretive dance about peeing your pants. And somehow I left this show just feeling so connected to other people. They did a beautiful thing that asked attendees to sort around and sort themselves into tribes according to the various performers that were on for this show. So you found yourself being drawn to the freaks or to the mystics or what have you. And what it gave to me at that moment was a sense of having a home, and not just of myself having a home, but everyone who was attending had space to exist. And my specific moment was a completely absurd little thing. Yannick Trapman O'Brien was playing the adjudicator. And he'd asked us all to type in something into the box. Just type any letter, go ahead and type F. And so everyone's typing F into the box. And he throws his hands up and he's just completely horrified at us, saying, "Oh, look at you. Now you've ruined everything. You're effing up all over the place." And that's how I kicked off my year. So The Fleecing, Almanac Dance Circus Theater, that's me.
As you started talking about The Fleecing and when it like clicked back into my mind, like I think I recall your review and maybe even maybe talking about on the show at some point. I don't know. Everything's a long blur for the past year. All right. Well, we did excellent on that, on the moments, by the way. So everyone's earned some more time to talk about their picks. As our plan, as we did in our last segment, Leah, you're going to get to do your picks first. So first, tell us what 3 shows are making your nice list this year.
Oh man, 3. I hadn't written down those 3. Let's see. So one of them
breaking news, everybody.
You heard it here first. It's The City at Your Feet is my top pick, an audio show. But I'm also going to be looking at TM, which is a show that Laura's going to be talking about, and somebody help.
Well, you have 2 other things you listed there. You could listen a whole bunch, but remember you've got they're right there actually in the chat. So if you
they are. You know what? I'm gonna go with Bottom of the Ocean. I think
excellent.
That's my third.
So of those 3, which one? So in the first segment, Ed talked about Bottom of the Ocean. So we've heard a lot about that so far. What of what you've got left of? I guess we've spoiled Laura's, but I guess it's City at Your Feet. Seems to be what you're left to talk about by process of elimination.
It is.
There you go.
All right. So The City at Your Feet, it was a part of the Tender Absence offline festival. And this one
remind us what that was, because that was a whole thing for a minute there.
It was. So this was a series of different artists and social experimenters coming through to create audio pieces that were meant to be played out in the universe. So all of these were shows that weren't meant to be played sitting at home. You were wandering about, interacting with the space or with people around you. but they were audio first. So some involved some amount of video or AR, but this was a primarily audio and spatial festival. And this one, the one that I did, City at Your Feet, took place simultaneously for a handful of people around the world, and asked us to follow the same series of prompts as we explored the space around us. And I loved it because in the same way that my moment, that the fleecing expanded my world from where I was sitting in a way that felt rich and beautiful, this really focused me in while I was out in the world and let me focus in on my very individual and specific experience of the world at large. It engaged a sense of play. It asked me to do things like make art out of things that I picked up on the street, or to talk to my guide, who was part of my experience, about what I was smelling and see if I could follow those smells. It was just a really nice, present, mindful experience. So that's my top pick for 2021.
Now I know a few of you did some of these others in the tender absence. Did anyone else play in the City at Your Feet? That would be a no.
Yeah, I was shaking my head and I realized that's not helpful at this moment.
Yeah, we don't use the video feature on here because God knows if we tried, it would probably break your ears.
We have not figured out this is an audio-only medium yet.
Yeah, we're trying. There is an option for us to use video, but when I did the other day, I was just like, nah, everyone could see how messy the room is, so I'm just not going to do that. That would just be you guys. I don't even want y'all to see that. Okay, so I think we're going to hear a little bit about some of these others in the tender absence. So working our way back, let's see. If I believe
that would
was
be me,
Patrick. Yes.
So to kind of build up to the one I really want to dig into, my other two kind of best shows and experiences I encountered this year was, the first one was Goliath, playing with reality. This is a VR experience, which I'm 90% sure is free on Oculus Quest right now. What I really just loved about that one was it showcases the power of VR in the sense that you can really be put into the shoes of someone else, that you can really walk a mile in someone else's life and empathize and sympathize in ways that are frankly not possible in other mediums, even outside of the immersiveverse. Additionally, I really loved Into the Mist. This was from a local Chicago company. They were doing a very kind of it was like one of these shows where you go to a special website and you click around and like you click on a door and that opens a Zoom window. A sandbox Zoom experience there. I just coined the term. And what I really loved about it is that while it was an involved interface to a certain point, it was easy. And what was really great is that every room was full of amazing artists doing talented work, and it was full of encounters with musicians, cartoonists, dancers, and so much more. And you could just really tell that they were great and grateful and happy to be there with you, creating art and you engaging with it. But ultimately, I think the best show and experience of the year for me was Shadow of the Run presents Dreamwalkers. And this is from a Cleveland company where this piece is part of kind of a larger tapestry. A lot of their experiences are interconnected and I believe set or involve real historical things that are occurring or had occurred in Cleveland. But this one in particular dealt with a young woman grappling with the possibility that her family was involved with the famed Torso murders. And it was in a suburb, I guess it would be called a suburb of Cleveland. And it was just first and foremost, it was a really well scoped out location, and you went into several buildings and things like that. And I found it to be a really rewarding and engrossing usage of found space. They really converted stuff and made it really awesome. But to the larger point, what I loved about this was that there were so many unique character interactions. You were a little bit on rails in the sense of like everyone had a badge with a lanyard on, and like, you know, there was some iconography, so the actors kind of knew where to push you around. But it was just such a wonderful environment to be in with, and these performers were top notch. And I think, and this is something I kind of casually bang the drum on when I'm typically on Review Crew and some of the other things, is that I think sometimes, and I'm guilty of it too, you know, we think of immersive stuff and we focus on things on the coasts a lot. But I think, you know, Shadow of the Run, and there's so many other companies in the Midwest, down south, all over, in between the coasts that are doing amazing regional work. And back to my moment in the sense of interconnecting all of these ideas, is that I loved it because here is a company in a regional space doing amazing immersive work and engaging the community they have. And that those people will maybe move, or they'll introduce others, or when they travel to New York or LA, they'll see things, and it'll just once again broaden the conversation and the knowledge and all of the options that we have for people in the immersiverse. And rant.
All right, I had to click the button and unmute my mic. Okay. I do love when there's people making work outside of, you know, the big territories, and we're able to shine a spotlight on that. So I'm really glad you chose Shadow of the Run to talk about for this run on the in big live work, right? I mean, that's one of the things we're going to be getting into, I think, in a bit. You know, is what the online stuff has done. We've talked about it a little bit, but I think we're going to get into that a lot more. Continuing back up the chain, Laura, it's your turn.
Yeah, this was a deliciously brutal exercise. Like, to pick 3, I'm so grateful, because I think it just shows how much work was truly exceptional, especially in this incredible time of hardship and change. So this was incredibly difficult. I have, in the published version of this, or the printed version of this, I definitely have a number of honorable mentions, but I narrowed it down to my 3 favorite experiences were Hive Rise by The Industry and the artist Lilith in partnership with Mocha, and which was a live in-person performance art piece in Los Angeles. I really wish everyone could experience this. It was described as a physical encounter with sound, and I'll leave that there. The other was The Adjacent Possible, which was by Joshua Michelle Ross, Adam Brick, and Adam Lucas. This was a remote interactive experience that was also really leveraged sound and co-creation through this fascinating design that was unlike anything else that I experienced all year. And then the last one that I'm actually going to go into some detail about is TM. This is by a Belgian theater company that I'm not going to try to pronounce and would likely butcher, but the rough English translation of the name is a play on real estate, and it's essentially feel estate. And this company has been around for quite some time. They're in their like 20th or 20 plus year existence, and they have a notable presence year after year at the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. So, but because we're across the pond, I've never experienced their work in person. And this show, TM, is a remote online show. And we've already touched on, both Leah and Patrick have touched a little bit about accessibility and universality. And this is a fantastic example of that. This show, for anyone who is doubting the power, the creativity, the innovation of digital theater, you need to do this show. This, I feel like, puts an end to any of the like ontological debates around like, is digital theater actually theater? It is powerful, transformative theater. And it is set up using the platform Oye, which is, it is so brilliantly designed. And there were moments that where I wondered, is this a live performer? Is this pre-recorded? So there were moments of questioning what the liveness was or wasn't, and how that kind of upended my sense of reality in a brilliant way. And similar to some other shows that we've talked about last year that are either phone-based or in-person based, like the Telelibrary or 1,000 Ways Part 1 and Part 2, there's a very unique personalized intimacy that's offered through the show via these kind of exploratory, very, very often universal probings. But it's I think the show comes across as more simplistic than it is. It is absolutely brilliant design. It is rooted in a very complex existential theme. And I did not anticipate where this was going because the experience design is so focused, it's so concentrated. And I was incredibly moved by this experience. In like 30, whatever it wound up being total, 30 to 40 minutes, I have not stopped thinking about it. So TM is, I cannot recommend it more highly.
And just remind me, because sadly someone texted me with some business stuff while we were talking that I had to deal with. Is this something that is still currently running, or is it something that could come back around?
No, it's something that could come back around. Okay. They had, if I remember correctly, there was, this was offered much earlier in the year. I missed it. I didn't know about it. Kathryn, you, our executive editor, wrote a capsule review for it. I want to say maybe in April. And then they just had they remounted it for 2 days earlier this month. I mean, just last week.
Oh. Okay.
So yeah. I'm certainly hopeful that they will continue. And from what I've read after doing the experience, I mean, their in-person live shows are something to behold, and again, very powerful. I just think that this one, it is it's on a different level, and it's brilliant design that shows the unique power and innovation of remote theater.
All right.
You know, I think there are live. Sorry to butt in there, but I think that there are a bunch of TMs scheduled for Hong Kong, and I gather that it's that each show is scheduled for different languages. So I'm not sure what the situation is there, but I see a few coming up.
Oh,
yeah. All right. Well, that means people should definitely be keeping an eye out for that one as the year continues, meaning next year. As next year begins, I guess, is maybe the better way to say that. Time. What even is it? Which actually is almost a good segue into Kevin's section, but we're gonna stick to the rules for a quick second. Kevin, for your 2021 selects, what do you got for us?
So I had sort of 3 shows, I guess. The first one was Run Club, which was another part of the Tender Absence festival. So that was one. It's really hard to talk about. It was really kind of a personal one for me in terms of kind of running an immersive theater and what it brought together there. The second one I wanted to talk about was Arcane, which I've talked about a lot. There's several review crews about this. Laura and I talked about this for about 50 minutes last week. That was a great conversation. Hopefully kind of touched on things about kind of where immersive theater is going in terms of some of these kind of larger branded activations and how it can bring people into the wider medium. That's kind of a topic I think we've been talking about today, is this kind of accessibility and how it manifests in different forms, whether it's legitimate like accessibility in terms of like physical restraints or kind of things like that, or if it's in terms of how to open immersive theater up to the wider population that may not find it. And I think Arcane does that pretty wonderfully in terms of the show Arcane through League of Legends, and I think it brought a lot of people together that way, and then does something cool with it. The actual performance of Arcane is a lot of fun, and I feel like probably some of these kind of branded shows are a little less fun, but this one is great, and they put a lot of care and work into it. The actors are great, and they keep everybody engaged really well. So I think if you want to know more, listen to the longer podcast we did last week about that one. And then the final thing I want to talk about was, I guess it technically premiered in 2020, but most people were talking about it this year, was Pursuit of the Assassin Artist, which is an online escape room. I haven't liked a lot of the virtual kind of immersive theater that's been out there. But this one really, I think, struck me because it's so much of what makes it work is because it is virtual. You couldn't run an escape room like this in real life because it uses this kind of clever mechanic that I don't want to get too much into because it does spoil it, and it's pretty upfront about what it ends up being. But because of that, it clicks, and it's like it takes this format and leans into being virtual and takes advantage of what you can do in that environment. And I think in a way, like, that's what site specific stuff does. It's what good immersive theater does. It takes advantage of the environment and the space you're in, and that's what Pursuit of the Assassin Artist does. And it is a blast as an escape room. It's these clever puzzles, and the way you have to solve them is a little bit different because it's not a normal escape room. So, and I think that's another one that, because it's remote and it's escape room, a lot of people can go to it at the same time. I think Patrick and I did it together, and we're located in LA and Chicago, so it's been a way to like bring more people into immersive theater again. So
yes, like one of the things that's been interesting, particularly with like this group, is to sort of watch how the ability to play together, whether it's going to something like Assassin Artist or when there's like a box set and there's like crossover stuff to be done, like that seems to be kind of a rhythm that's starting to appear just a little bit in just like these past couple of months. Or am I just imagining stuff? But I kind of feel like that is often the discussion when we're in review crew about like, what are we all going to go do next together?
I think
I do think it is. Yeah, I think it's it is newer. I think we've gotten to the point with the pandemic where I think a lot of the online stuff that comes out today, 12/15 or onward, is for all those listening 8,000 years in the future, is intentionally being done online, or is intentionally for VR or web browsers or so on and so forth, where I feel like something that happened in the first part was, it's like we had to make a hard pivot into the online space. Like, we got to try to find a way to pay a few people, get them through these really hard, grueling months to start. But now I feel like with Pursuit of the Assassin Artist and some of these other ones is that they came at a time where, people, there was the brave pioneers who figured things out, who took risks and things like that. But now a lot of the stuff is being intentionally designed, where what Kevin said is that, how can we use this medium to our advantage? So I think, Noah, to your point, I think we're in the kind of golden age of potentially of the online stuff. We're right there too, where it's like, because right now I even checked, like we could all right after this, in theory, book a room and do the Assassin Artist together right now. And we all are in 5 different locations, 3 different states, Yeah,
it's kind of impressive what's possible to do, and that there are enough people who've figured out sort of like the kind of magic formula that makes the actual collaboration at a distance interesting. Because I gotta admit, like, the prospect of being on anything that resembles a Zoom call, like, there's nothing about that process that I enjoy. It is pure stress from the moment I get the link until the thing is closed, usually because it is causing some kind of, technical guffaw. So when the piece of work is actually compelling enough that I sort of forget that we're on a Zoom call and can just play, when the Chrome disappears and it's just connecting with people, that's a high degree of magic. I don't know if you guys get like the same thing when it comes to these telecommunications platforms.
Oh, absolutely. And I think that's why some of the ones that we called out tonight were really such standouts. The Chrome goes away. I like it. That's good, Noah.
And not just that the Chrome goes away, or not that these were just sort of, not that anyone else is using this language, these are my words, but like, that these are kind of like placeholders, that as Kevin's pointing out about Pursuit of the Assassin Artist, that these are leveraging remote platforms, and technology in ways that you cannot experience that in person. The Adjacent Possible and TM and other shows that we covered last year, like Shane Easton's Out There, they have been so beautifully designed to leverage these technologies and these platforms in ways that, even though I love in person, in ways that in person cannot. And so it doesn't feel like it's this sort of, what's the word that I want? Like, that it's just kind of a second best option. These different creators and companies are finding ways to craft with these technologies in mind. Another one was the sleepover, because Noah, I know you really loved that, and I did too. Like they're utilizing these platforms and technologies in ways that in person can't match.
And I think too, it's not even about like high end technology. Some of it's pretty simple. It's just
Right.
like a camera and a thing. Even Run Club, the one I kind of mentioned a few minutes ago, that couldn't exist in a normal kind of immersive format, because it's so much about having someone almost talking in your head as you're running. And that's a Zoom call that you're listening to on headphones as you walk or run around your neighborhood. And I think there's simple but effective ways to really take advantage of the technology and the connection available now through these remote shows that people have started to figure out and embrace in a way that enhances the show rather than just trying to get something out there.
Yep.
Yeah, it makes me think about how, there's all this fervor and craze about, the metaverse and how that's going to be in like all of our digital lives and our digital selves. And I hadn't really been thinking about the way these shows are figuring out how to use this rather clunky technology to still make us feel connected as being sort of like the precursor for whatever that's going to be. Like I don't trust that whatever companies think this web 3.0, I think we're going to jump right to web 4.0, because web 3.0 seems to have like instantly sold out and gotten co-opted by Nike before it could even begin. But like this whole movement it's predicated on the idea that we will find an additional depth of connection beyond what we already have using the online tools. And I think that only winds up happening if we have very clever, creative people finding ways to create connection that overcomes the technology, that leverages in ways that aren't just about creating extractive relationships, between everybody, just constant demands on everyone's time and attention.
Right. And I think in some ways, that's something we talk about a lot about on Review Crew, is kind of the thought behind something. And if people are just like, hey, let's do something with an NFT or the metaverse or whatever, like that's going to be silly or dumb. But you can take like people that are putting thought into how these shows function with these mediums, whether it's Zoom or just like a camera that's kind of feeding into a platform, or I guess eventually like the metaverse. Like I think the thought behind it is really what makes these shows work at all. And
yeah,
hopefully we have people aiming higher than just like trying out new technology to see what happens.
There's a quote running around from Keanu, who's having a moment again, and it basically boils down to, I wish I could pull it up right in front of me. I don't think I retweeted it. It's essentially just, art's meant to be experienced, not owned. And like all of the hype right now is about, owning art, which, I don't begrudge any of the digital artists, particularly the digital artists we know or who like work in our space or who cross over with us, folks we've had on the show. Like some of them are playing in that NFT space and they're releasing things. And I think it's like, paying off college debt and funding their kids' college. And I'm all for that. But there's still this level to it of like, art is meant to be experienced. Culture is something that happens, that we're inside of and happens between us. It's not something you can just, get a digital file of and say, I now own culture. You can have contributed to the creation of it, even after the fact, but the experience thing is still what matters the most.
And I think a great example of what we're trying to highlight here, and Kevin pointing out specifically, like some of this is not even about, when we refer to technology, it doesn't even necessarily mean new technology. I will never stop being a proponent of these phone-based experiences. I have had some of the most incredible, very connected moments, whether it was the Telelibrary, the program, 1,000 Ways. I mean, these are, and Candle House Collective was, that is their model, is phone-based immersive theater. Before the pandemic, and obviously now it's they've been churning out a lot of wonderful work. And so I just think that I think what we're all saying and distilling down to is, again, around the intentionality and the experience design and what are the goals. And I mean, I fully agree with Keanu that, and with what you're saying, Noah, of course, it's not just that the commercialization is overall a negative thing. Of course not. But ultimately, yes, what is the messaging? Why tell this story? Who is the story for? And how are you going to use the methodologies around telling that story to truly deliver on it?
All right. Well, we've got some more conversations to have before the year ends, but right now, this is going to be the end of this segment. I want to thank you all for hopping in tonight and for going through the harrowing process of winnowing down your choices. I always find it clarifies the mind. For me, it definitely did that, and you'll all get to hear the results of that in a moment. Kathryn and I recorded that segment last night. But again, Leah, Kevin, Patrick, Laura, thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Always a pleasure.
Yay!
Well, Kathryn, we've reached the end of the show, and now's my turn.
Oh, fancy that. So, Noah, what was your top immersive moment of the year 2021?
So, like a lot of immersive moments in 2021, this one was at home on my floor, and with me strapped into an Oculus.
Okay,
but
I was wondering where that was going.
but in this particular case, this was this is something that I wouldn't have actually expected, which is the moment I've selected for this year as my highlight is from a 360 video, which traditionally aren't my jam, but David Rapp's Monte Gelato, which is this incredible collage piece that takes all of this film footage, pretty much almost a century's worth of film footage, just shy of a century's worth of film footage of this famed waterfall outside Rome that's been the backdrop for tons of movies in Italy. And I think, even internationally, but it's a very popular spot. And they create this collage of the location. It's unlike anything I had seen before. I hope it almost becomes a genre in of itself, but there was just something about watching it all come together and feeling like I was experiencing time travel mixed with like spatial projection. It was purely magical. And in so many ways, it was very simple but precise. This is all regular 2D film that's been just made over all these years, and just the editor's eye, the collage artist's eye, being used to create a space out of all this material that already exists. Just just wondrous to watch it come together. And it produced this feeling of awe in me, both the awe of nature and the awe of being in awe of human creativity and human ingenuity, all at once. And so, yeah, that's my moment for this year. Realizing what's going on, realizing that, particularly, I guess, very specifically, a bit of the collage would happen and then it would stay there. And then another bit of the collage would happen in another spot.
Okay.
And then it kind of builds up.
Transitioning back, kind of like as time is like reverberating.
Yeah, you might see like 10, like it's all laid out in front of you, but it's like, imagine you had like 50 years worth of 360 photos of the room you're in right now. And they're just bits and pieces. So like you look just to the left and you see 50 years ago, you look to the right, you see yesterday, you look right in front of you, it's 10 years ago.
Are they like superimposed on top of each other? So you get
a little bit,
almost like a, yeah, definitely collage montage kind of feeling.
Absolutely. Exactly that. So then something else might kind of pop in and like change. And it's gorgeous. It's really gorgeous. It's unlike anything. See, it took like 4 minutes to like get to the exact point. Shocker. It's me. I'm also doing this kind of on the fly. So that was my moment. Cool. Realizing that was what was happening in front of me and being like, oh my goodness, I can't believe it. I can't believe they went for it. So there.
Great. Well, Noah, so that was your top immersive moment.
Mm-hmm.
What about your top 3 shows or experiences that you saw in 2021?
So I'm going to give you the option of telling me which one to wax poetic on, because I can't make up my mind.
Okay.
And we're recording this before we recorded the second segment or the first segment, depending on how we air them. So don't know if one of these is going to come up.
It's like a movie. It's all out of order.
Yeah. So my top 3 that I had to pick for the year in no order, right? Or in no order. Arcane, the League of Legends experience from Secret Cinema. Arcane Enter the Undercity is the technical name. Kusunda, which is a VR documentary that made its debut in Tribeca, that is about a language that is almost gone, and it uses volumetric video and game asset storytelling kind of blended together in a way that's absolutely lovely to give you an experience of this endangered language and the lives of the folks who speak it. And then Creep, the 2021 edition of Creep, which Hollow House is, I believe, like the unofficial subtitle of it. It's part of the spooky season mainstay here in LA. And those are the three things that I, for entirely different reasons, that I cherish the most from this year.
Man. Having listened to Ed's and Blake's selections as well as yours, I'm always amazed at like the diversity of stuff that ends up under this immersive umbrella, because we've got things that are live and in person, we've got VR that you do at home, we've got online escape rooms, we've got telephone experiences. Man. And I feel like we have waxed poetic quite often about Arcane fairly recently.
We've done I think we've done almost 2 hours on Arcane of late.
But I guess looking back, now that it's been several weeks, why does this edition of Creep stand out to you? Not that like the other editions of Creep weren't also special, but why this one for 2021?
Well, and I almost want to cheat and like mash Creep up with the I Know What You Did Last Summer activation that they did in the middle of the run, and I got lucky enough to do both. But for me, the big thing is just how they transformed the space they were in. Every Creep up until this one, it's such a game company, right? not a game company, but like a company that is a game, JFI, Just Fix It Productions. Like they've got this cast they've been working with for a very long time, all of whom are kind of fearless and up for all kinds of shenanigans. And they work this kind of scary, sexy, creepy, it's in the name, creep vibe. But oftentimes, as ingenious as they've been with how they've used space, the previous years, it's been threadbare. They have a really good visual eye, but they wouldn't necessarily have the resources always to take it all
to
the
like
way.
make it as dense or textured as they would want to.
Exactly. And this year they did it. They grabbed Elizabeth Jarrett and Stephanie Perdita, I believe. I'm going off memory, so Stephanie, if I got your last name wrong, I'm so sorry. I'm remembering 6 Stephanies' last names right now. Who had worked with Scout Exposition Co. on the current incarnation of The Nest. And the piece was set up at the Three Clubs, which is a bar and kind of nightclub, like lounge nightclub venue here in Los Angeles that has undergone its own, the performance space side has undergone its own transformation a number of times over the past few years. And I just remember being in the space. You can hear it on the episode. Actually, I don't think I did this moment, but we did an episode where I visited before they did the show, and just walking in and seeing how much they had thoroughly transformed that space and creating a whole, just this incredible set, this incredible place. It was, crawling up onto the walls, up off the walls onto the ceiling, like just like this kind of dimensional vortex had occurred inside this performance space that I knew really well. And that transformation and the transformation that they put things through when they reskinned it a couple of weeks into the show to do this activation for this very campy, silly Amazon Prime series, which I wound up watching despite the fact that like the writing was all over the place, but the activation I loved so much that I was like, oh, I'm going to watch the show now. And it was so nice to see like everyone back on their BS, as we like to say, but to see that they had stepped up the game and that they had taken a step forward in their craft. That's what got me excited, and got me hopeful about where we stand as a movement, as an industry, that even with this incredibly hard 2 years we've all endured, that we can endure, that we can go forward, that very solid work can be made, and indeed that artists and teams can take the next step forward in what they're doing. And all of that. And just, it was fun. It was just fun. At the end of the day, that's a big part. Was it fun? Was it deep? No. Cassunda's deep, but like what Creep and Arcane have together is that they were fun. And you need both, right? And so like of these 4, right, there's this mix of profundity in Cassunda and some profundity in Montagelato and like in an art sense. And then with Creep and Arcane, it's just the craft and the joy of the craft. And at the end of the day, if I didn't find joy in this craft, I would walk away. I would walk away. So they've kept me in for as long as I can keep doing it.
I mean, let's be
So
truthful here. No one's actually trying to pull you out.
The world sometimes seems to not pull so much as push. Just kind of putting a foot on my rear.
It sounds like JFI still has access to that space, right?
Oh yeah, I mean that's a big part of it, right? And one of the reasons why they were able to do this is kind of like like what Ed was talking about with Andrew, like having
Mhm.
a home base in a space. JFI has that home base in space in the form of the Ghost Light, where they stage creep this year, and I think that's going to be true going forward. Like they're bringing shows back, and they're what their plan was, and I don't know how this is if it's shaping up or whatnot, but their plan was to invite other creators into the space to use it and to do runs in there. So things. I mean, the world is weird right now, so who knows how that plan's going to shake out? But I know that's the game.
Well then, to resilience and more art in 2022.
Indeed. Kathryn, thanks.
Thank you, Noah. Happy New Year.
All right, I want to thank the whole crew for going through this whole process with us. That would be Patrick and Kevin and Laura and Leah and Blake and Edward, and of course Kathryn. Well, how can we forget Kathryn? We didn't. That's how we just didn't forget Kathryn. I want to thank you all for spending the year with us. We got one more episode coming out next week. We are on publishing hiatus. Other than that, it's going to be kind of a year-end episode. For those of you who have made plans to attend the Next Stage Summit and Mini Festival in January, do check your email from Eventbrite. We sent out a notification to everybody. We are monitoring the Omicron situation intensely right now. I'm recording this on December 24th. There have been a lot of flights canceled. CES has had major speakers pull out. Just for transparency's sake, we haven't had, other than a couple of weeks ago when we had Sarah Ellis of the Royal Shakespeare Company have to bow out. And we also had Hamish of Department bow out. We haven't had any other speakers that were announced bow out. We did have someone who was unannounced. We were about to announce. They stepped out of the box this week. We're monitoring really closely. We're going to have we have kind of a decision point on Monday, just so you know, and we'll give everyone a big status update then. This week has made me realize how much I want to produce this event and how much I want to produce this event and make it good. And if Omicron is going to keep us from being able to present the production we want to present to you and convene the community the way we want to convene it, then we'll take the steps to make sure that we can do this right. That's always a concern. So those notifications are up. That's also up on the website if you want to check out experiencethenextstage.com. It really is a matter of when something looks like it's being taken away from you, as this has been taken away from us before. You understand the value of it, and it is very important to me that we convene the community. It's also very important to me that we convene the community in a manner that is safe and sane. Like fireworks. Anyway, keep an eye out for an update on that if you're part of that whole crew. Again, one more episode. We will have a break the following week. We will not be recording anything. We'll have some kind of episode the week following that. But we are on a publishing hiatus for all of next week because one way or another, no matter what, I need the time. So it's been a very trying year. All right. We give the shout outs to all the Patreon backers. I'm going to do it one more time. Thanks everybody. I literally have a roof over my head because of you people. From whether you're given $1 a month, or you're some of these folks who I'm going to name again because they're the bedrock of what we do. That's Ari Hurston, Brittany, Deborah Robinson, Elaine, Jay Bushman. They're from the start. Jerome Joseph Gentis, David Bassick, Lonnie Hands-On. Lonnie, I hope Camp Christmas is going amazingly. Mark Baltazar, Samuel Mustry, Sydney Guillory. Want to catch up in Discord soon. And Jan Budman. Thank you all. Yeah. Probably more next week. There's got another year in front of us. And yeah, that's all I'll say for now. Until next time, I'm Noah Nelson, and I'll see you at the show.